Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Legal Unicorns podcast with your host, Rob Green. I am utterly delighted to be joined today by someone I consider a friend. She might not know that. But
Absolutely. I consider you a friend too, Rob.
Wonderful. Tendai Jangara, who is currently a director at Cliff Decker here in wonderful Johannesburg, wonderful, sunny, warm Johannesburg today. I'm so delighted to get you onto the podcast because I've been asking, well, we've been trying to get it sorted for a while, and then my wonderful team booked me on a plane and then said, right, you're going. And Tendai's Thursday, let's go. And I'm really interested to sit with you, talk to you a little bit more about your journey, because it, like we were just saying off camera, the people, we have many tens of thousands of listeners and they all write in, and it's wonderful, and please keep it coming. We're growing the podcast, so it's wonderful. But the common thread that comes through is that people want to know that, you know, that their normal life, almost for want of a better term, can lead to great things. And they take the odd gem from professionals like yourself who are making it in the legal career. And so so thank you again for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Rob, and I'm looking forward to our chat.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, now I think we're going to get into your specialism going forward, but I think it's fair to say that you are a forensics and investigations expert, aren't you?
Yes,
Which
I am.
is a fascinating part of law that I really want to get into. But if we can start with taking us back a handful of years to when you were little. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? What's your journey to here today?
So, Rob, I'm Zimbabwean Malawian. So born in Zimbabwe to parents of Malawian descent. And I grew up in Harare. Went to school there, went to the Dominican convent, which is one of the schools in Harare, girls' school. And I mentioned that because I think that really had a huge impact on who I am today. Just being in an environment with other women was great for me. So I came from a family with a wonderful mom, wonderful dad, very empowering parents, and also went to a school that I felt really empowered me as a person. And that led to me going to study after school. I came to South Africa, went to the University of Cape Town. But just going back, I think when I look back on my childhood, what really stands out for me is family. So I come from a family of lawyers. My dad is a lawyer. My aunt, I think about 3 uncles are lawyers. So I think I felt limited in my choices, but not in a bad way. Limited in the fact that in our family, it was, if you were good at maths, you were going to be an accountant. If you were good at the arts, you were going to be a lawyer. So that's how I thought about it, and was very excited about a career in law.
It's not just if you were good at arguing.
And not just good at arguing. It was actually if you enjoyed reading. And I think a lot of people think about law that way. They think about a lot of reading, the books, the cases. So I love reading, still an avid reader. And that's how I saw myself, going into law. I imagined myself in court and, thought that was what I was going to do. And I think also what really had an impact on me was not just being a student and focusing on academics. As I was growing up, as I was at school, I played a lot of sport as well. I was a hockey player.
I was going to say, which ones?
So I was a hockey player. Hockey was my main sport. I actually traveled to South America, played hockey, came to South Africa, played in a few tournaments. Absolutely
so you were
loved
good.
it. I was good. In my time, I was good. And again, I think it was just that well-roundedness. So really enjoying the sport, also partaking in cultural activities. We had an African literature club, for example, which was great.
Sounds
just
like a fantastic school.
It was excellent. Still a great school. So, leaving school for me and sort of going out into the big wide world was me as a woman who had been exposed to a lot of things at school. And I embraced life just from just having that broad expression and being able to speak and enjoy different cultural activities, as I said, traveling, really opened the world up to me. So I then embarked on my university career as someone who was very excited about going into it and not thinking about it just from the academic perspective. So I knew I was going to university to get a degree, but I also came to the University of Cape Town to really discover life.
Interesting, because that not a lot of students really. Well, that's unfair of me to say. It's great. It's great that you had that foresight, because maybe many of the students I went to university with weren't really looking at it from a cultural perspective. They were looking for, I'm going to escape my parents and I'm going to party for the next 3 years, which, it's not, okay, that's fine.
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing, or maybe a bit of balance. It doesn't hurt. But just let me go back a step quickly. You said both your parents were lawyers. So
my dad.
Your dad was a lawyer.
Yes.
And do you have brothers and sisters?
So I have a younger sister, not in the legal profession. She's in hospitality. So we went a completely different way.
Okay, cool. Yes. I just wondered, because I think sometimes I've seen it before where the father or the mother is a lawyer, and then the eldest child will typically follow in that path.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a bit of pressure, and sometimes there isn't. But it's great you've obviously. We've talked about this before, but when we were working together a couple of years ago, but you give me that sense of family being very close and very important to you, which it is for me as well. And I think when you travel around like you've done and I've done, family actually becomes a lot tighter as well. And it's nice that you have that in your life. It gives you great grounding. And then you add that to the schooling you're mentioning, which sounds fantastic. Sort of growing up strong, independent women. That's amazing. That's
absolutely. I'm grateful for the background that I have. I'm grateful for the education that I got, and it was really my parents thinking about what they wanted for me as their daughter. And at a time where, when we look back in history, a lot of people would say to my parents, but don't you want to try for a son? They would say to my dad, don't you want to have a boy? And my dad said, no, I'm happy with my 2 girls, because children are children and they're going to be great adults. And I think just having that poured into me has really played a huge part in who I am. And I think we'll talk about my area of specialization.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
I think it's really, given me that push and that drive to take on the world. And when I speak taking on the world, as you said, I'm an ordinary person, but I've taken on my world.
Yeah.
I've taken on my world.
I can adhere to that with the dealings and the conversations that we've had together. I obviously deal with and have dealt with many thousands of lawyers over the years across the world. It is refreshing when I meet someone like yourself who's in control and of their life. And you and I came around with some career coaching and some advice. That's also taking control, because it's you turning around to the market and going, do you know what? Actually, I kind of need. I think I'll talk to that guy, and then I'll bring that in and that expertise, and that's the impression I get from you, is that you are constantly evolving and looking and learning and developing, which again I want to get into in a moment. The point you made there about again, this is a cultural thing, isn't it? And I'm not sure whether. I'm sure it probably still exists, but maybe not so much anymore. But it was quite common all over the world, where people would say, don't you want to try for a son? Yeah. Why? What about a boy? Yes. Especially in parts of Africa, I imagine.
Absolutely.
And certainly Asia, where I've spent a lot of time. Is it still like that?
So surprisingly, we still get people who are like, I get age mates who still feel that way, who still want to try for that boy. Really? Which
my wife's got one friend who's got 4 boys who just desperately wants to have a girl. It's like, just stop now.
Yeah,
just in
case
you have a
with
5th boy.
And Rob, so I just want to make another point. So we spoke about as you said, the impression of me taking control. But something I should mention is I struggled at university.
You did. Okay.
I struggled at university, so got there very excited, as I said. Looking forward to my degree, but when I got into the culture of university, I actually found that I enjoyed myself so much with what I was experiencing that my academic... Cape Town is fantastic. My academics, I wouldn't say it took a back seat, but I wasn't as focused as I should have been. And it wasn't partying for me. It really was just that cultural experience. So meeting people from different countries, being, for example, I would hang out with the Baha'i faith students. So just having that, I actually enjoyed myself a lot. And for a while, I actually struggled in the middle of my degree and thought at some point that law wasn't for me. And I remember then speaking to my dad and saying, actually, I want to go into something else. I'm not enjoying this. I'm not doing well at it. And credit to my dad. At the time, I thought he was horrible. But I'm so grateful now. He said to me, stick with what you started.
That's a parent's job, though.
That's a parent's job. I'm a parent now.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that.
That's our job.
Yeah, so I think, just it's important for me to say that because where I am now, isn't the full journey. I need to talk about that difficult part and writing supplementary exams, for example.
Let me delve into that. I think that I'm glad you brought that up because that is important. Is because again, we have many listeners luckily from around the world, but also at varying stages of their careers.
Yes.
But there is a big part of the listenership, if that's the right word, that is at that sort of university and going into the workforce kind of age, which is great because, and please keep them coming because your questions are fantastic and actually you will learn from people like Tendai and it's good to know that there is those troubles, that bump in the road almost.
Absolutely.
So please tell me more about that. So you thought you threw yourself into the cultural aspects of life and university life.
University life. So I served in my residence. I became head of my residence.
So you were keeping yourself busy with lots of other things.
I was very busy doing good. As I said, it wasn't partying, wasn't wasting my parents' money, doing good things. But I lost that balance of remembering why I was there. And primarily, you go to university to study. I let the other aspects take off. So student leadership was a very big part of my life. Absolutely loved it. I served on the SRC, but didn't keep that balance with my academics, didn't keep them going as well as I should have.
That's really interesting because you don't often come across people who have taken on extracurricular activities, but have taken on too many.
Yes.
That's and that's where you were, I guess.
That's where I was.
So we often talk to students, and I guess you've probably mentored younger people and people that have worked for you, and I'm sure students as well. And you would say extracurricular, get involved in the university.
Yes.
But Tendai is here to tell you.
Yeah, I was the extreme.
Wow.
I was the absolute extreme. Excellent student leader, if I can say so myself. I worked hard. We were at the point of, fighting for student fees, dealing with those kind of issues. And I threw myself into that. And as I said, my academics were not matching my energy levels that I was pouring into.
And it questioned your whole existence there. And whether you really wanted to do the law and...
Absolutely.
And which I suppose, again, people listening to this may be feeling right now. They may be sitting there going, well, I failed X, Y, and Z. I've got to retake.
Yes.
Is this the end? Should I be doing it?
Yeah.
Should I do something else?
And really feeling like it might be the end, So sort of so that was in my second year. In my third year, I started picking myself up. I realized that I was getting to a very critical point where I might actually not finish this degree. And, got myself back on track. And then at the end of my final year, I actually failed one exam and couldn't graduate when I expected to graduate.
Really?
It was...
See, again, another thing that I'm sure other people have gone through is, so one subject at the end. It was
one subject at the end, and I was devastated.
Please tell me it wasn't forensics. Because that's
It wasn't. It's something I stay far away from. It was Deloitte.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the situation I was in is that I actually had a job overseas. So as a student leader, I got involved with an organization called Civic Concepts International. And they had a youth leadership conference that they ran twice a year in Prague. And in my second year, I started working with them. So would go there over the holidays and work my way from attending as just as a student, was invited back as a facilitator, then was invited back to be conference leader.
Wow.
And so what had happened was I was getting to the end of my degree, and they had invited me to then come back and actually work. And on the day I was leaving for Prague, I got my final results, and I had failed one exam.
Wow.
And I was devastated.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was that feeling?
I got on the plane and went to Prague absolutely devastated. I was crying all the way there because I couldn't see what would happen with my future. I did not know what was going to happen.
I didn't have a degree.
I didn't have a degree.
Yeah.
And all plans had been put in place, with the assumption that I was finishing. I didn't even care about graduation because I thought I'd have my degree anyway. Had this fantastic opportunity, loved Prague. I had been there a few times, absolutely loved it. And got to Prague without an idea of how I was going to solve the issue. I then spoke to a very good friend of mine. She was an older student. We had been through the degree together, and I said to her, this is what's happened. I'm going to try and register with UNISA, see if I can finish. She said to me, no, Tendai, you have to finish. Because I had actually given up on UCT. I just didn't think it was going to work. I didn't want to come back. She said to me, I'm going to send you all of your notes, because I got on the plane without my notes. I just couldn't think straight.
Oh, wow.
So she said,
sorry, were you on the phone with someone?
with my friend? So she was here in South Africa. I was in Prague. She said to me, I'm going to courier all of the Deloitte notes to you. You are going to study while you are working. You're going to come back and you are going to write the supplementary exam in January. So this all happened in November.
Okay, so we're talking 8 weeks to go.
8 weeks to go. She said to me, you will come back and you will write the exam. And I remember thinking at the time, I can't. I just didn't have the strength for it.
Yeah, because it was a gut punch. I think is the best way to describe it. It destroyed you. Because also in your mindset, you will have already let go of the university.
I had.
You got degrees in the bag.
Yes.
Let's look forward.
Yes.
Now suddenly you have to go back.
I have to go back. I had packed everything up. I wasn't coming back to Cape Town. I was done with Cape Town. I was done with South Africa. I was moving on.
Europe. I'm going.
So went through most of December, just still devastated, doing my work in Prague. And then one day I woke up and I said, actually, I'm going to do this. I need to get this.
You found the strength.
I found
yourself.
the strength. But I had to, I didn't find it immediately.
Nerve-wracking.
It took me a while.
Dad, by the way.
Yeah. And also nerve-wracking.
Mr. Jangara, out there. we can feel your pain. It was, I've got to let her make her own decisions.
And my employer in Prague had bought me a one-way ticket because I was then going to work for a long time. I then had to say to them, actually, I have to go back because I have to go and deal with this exam. Came back to South Africa, Cape Town, in the January. I think about 10 days before I had to write the supplementary exam. And again, I had to dig deep to study.
Because
it was hard.
You're picking yourself up off the floor.
Absolutely.
Like you're going, I've got to do this.
I have to do this. And interestingly, that was also around the time my husband and I became friends and were getting to know each other. So a lot of things were happening that I didn't know.
Maybe a nice distraction.
At the time, I didn't think so.
Yeah.
I was like,
actually, just a distraction.
Just a distraction. I have a bigger problem to deal with. But wrote that exam and I passed it.
I love these stories because you just see how life patterns out for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? But it's not always exactly how you would write it down.
Absolutely not.
And you don't know when the love of your life is going to walk in at this time. And I love that.
And I have to say, it's important for me because when I had started speaking to him as a friend, I actually just considered him someone, I was just chatting, but I wasn't coming back. I was going to Prague and then I was going to move on from there. But because I came back and wrote the exam, what then happened was the weekend after I finished the exam, he traveled from Pretoria without telling me, came to Cape Town, and then called me and said, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? And I said, well, that's impossible.
Romantic.
Because you're in Pretoria. I'm in Cape Town. And he said, no, actually, I've come to Cape Town to take you to dinner.
Oh.
And that's
Well
the man
played,
who
sir.
ended up becoming my husband. I didn't know he would be my husband at that point. I passed that exam,
Smash the
graduated,
exam, by the way. Yeah.
smashed the exam, got the degree.
Well done.
And then I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life and how I wanted to work. And
So just for context, what year was this?
So this is in 2006.
Okay.
It's 2006, beginning of 2006. My employer from Prague then says, we're ready for you to come back. We had a big conference happening in Dubai, which I was, part of organizing. And I started thinking about my life and suddenly felt like I actually didn't want to do that work anymore.
Okay.
After having done it for a few years.
Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Started thinking about, I've got this law degree now. I've actually got it now. And what do I want to do with it?
And just a quick one, again for context, your father, was he an advocate or was he a practicing attorney?
So my dad is in corporate. He studied, he did his law degree and then specialized in international law. He studied in the UK. Went back to independent Zimbabwe in 1980 and then worked for the government and then moved into the private sector. So he's worked in company secretarial.
Yeah, I just wondered because obviously you would get a lot of context of what's out there from him. And he's obviously now just saying that he's worked in government and in corporate. And, and
that actually had a big influence on me. So for me, studying law wasn't necessarily just practice because I had my dad for context. My dad's sister is a professor at SOAS.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so she does human rights.
So as in the School of Oriental and African Studies.
Yes. So I knew that side of it. I've got an uncle who's in practice, a solicitor. So I had
Family of lawyers.
Yes, I had that well-rounded understanding of what you could do with a law degree.
And sometimes a good view of, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
What you don't want to do. Yeah.
So I knew I didn't want to go into practice. At that point, I think as I went through my law degree, I absolutely knew that I did not want to go into practice.
See, again, a nice lesson for people listening to this is that what your career journey has taken on many different paths, and theirs will as well. But you, at the time, you really taking and owning your career and focusing on what you want to do, which led you into the forensic space, I guess.
So in my final year of studying of my LLB, I did an elective called Specific Offences with a great lecturer.
Specific Offences?
It's called Specific Offences. Okay. So you look at specific acts within the legal sector. So fraud was one of the areas we looked at, and had a great lecturer called Esther Stein. She's a judge now. She was a lecturer at University of Cape Town. Amazing woman in the legal profession, and I absolutely loved the course. I think that was the highlight of my studying, of my degree.
Calling, chipping
Found
away.
it. Yeah. So I knew that I had enjoyed that, but I didn't know what it was as a career. So when I started applying to do work, I was thinking more around criminal law, thought about legal aid board, and then had a discussion with someone who spoke about forensics. And they spoke about forensics as a specialization, as an actual career. And I hadn't heard this before. And they were talking about it in banking specifically. So I then went and started doing research. Then this world opened up of that area of specific offenses that I had studied, which was fraud, but in a commercial, very commercial context. And I love business. I'm a business-orientated person. Yeah. The books I read are about business, building empires. I love reading biographies, Oppenheimer type.
Well, I can't do it at night because then I get up and I have 50 ideas.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it suddenly clicked that I wanted to be in forensics. I then knew what I wanted to do with this law degree that had really brutalized me with the Deloitte, and I hadn't really enjoyed aspects of it. But suddenly there was something that I actually could do with it. So I decided that I was going to work in forensics, specifically in banking. I didn't know how I was going to get there. So I literally sat and looked at all the
brilliant.
banks.
So you were like, no, I'm going to do this.
I said, I'm going to do
I'm
this.
going to work out how to do it.
I'm going to do it.
Again, nice lesson for people listening.
Said, I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do this.
I Googled all the banks in South Africa, looked for contacts in their forensic departments, and I was literally looking for forensics. And I applied to every person I could find. So anywhere where I could find a person in forensics working in a bank, I literally sent my CV at a cover letter, and I said, I want to get into this area. I would like to work in it. Got no responses for quite a while. And then one day got an email from a gentleman called Eric Cilliers, and it was Teba Bank. I had never heard of Teba Bank, not one of the major banks, but I had sent my email out to everyone, every bank I could find. And he invited me to Teba Bank for a chat, found it in Sunninghill, had a chat with him, told him about the research I had done. I had done some legal research into whistleblowing, and I went there and said, I know about whistleblowing, which is part of, forensics and corporate investigations.
As you are bringing in all the information.
Yes. Had a great chat with him, was looking forward to hearing from him. And then I didn't hear from him. Then I got a call from Dimension Data, I think it was at the time. And I might be wrong on the organization, but one of the IT organizations, and they had a developmental program, went there and they actually placed me in their forensic department. On my first day there, I got a call from Eric Cilliers, and he said, are you able to come to Teba Bank and take up a position? Yeah. So I actually spoke to the gentleman I had been partnered with at the IT company. I said to him, look, this is what's happened. And he said to me, go for it, because that's an actual career opportunity. We are giving you an internship, but it might not, work out.
It might, but it might not.
It might not. This is something solid. Go for it. And went to Teba Bank. Had an amazing 2 years working with Eric. I was the only woman on the team. I went in as a forensic analyst with a team of investigators.
Wonder why that is.
So, the forensic field is interesting. It is opening up now, but this was a good 13, 14, 15 years ago. Yeah, 2008. So I think it was just one of those things. I don't think it was exclusionary in any way, or they aimed to exclude.
It just sort of grew in out of one guy, two guys, three guys.
Exactly.
Rather than it's not for women.
Exactly. Yeah. So went there and had the best education ever. Wonderful team. They taught me everything they knew about forensics. So
what is it? A small team?
It was a small team. I think there were 6 of us.
Oh, brilliant.
And I got to do everything investigation related. I had gone in as an analyst, so I was doing my analysis as well, which is a specialization, but I was also investigating. And
smaller banks, smaller organizations, so you are able to get involved in lots of different things.
Yeah. And I get to also then speak to Exco. So what Eric would do is he'd ask me to write reports, and I had opportunities to then present them to Exco and the board, and that really helped me to grow very fast.
Can I just interject? Sorry. Just for those who might not be familiar with the field, would you be investigating and analysing potential monetary fraud transactions that might have involved the bank somewhere, and then looking at where they've ended up? And,
exactly that. And actual money.
I should have done it.
Exciting, absolutely exciting. Actual money from people's accounts. You also get the opportunists who would say, I had money in my account and it's gone. And we say, no, you did not have
$1 million
money.
Rand in there.
And
now it's gone. Now I'm overdrawn.
And you also get employees who would then go into people's accounts and, try and use the system. So all of that.
Where there is money, there are people trying to jimmy the system.
Absolutely.
Own the future of recruitment today. Access a secured, anonymized global talent pool. Connect with qualified candidates through multiple private label databases. By creating your own Stintit, you can achieve the following. Step 1. Access your company dashboard by logging in. Step 2. Click Find Candidate to search for the ideal candidate. To begin, create a new position and fill in the necessary details. The system will search through multiple databases to find the ideal match for you. Step 3. Once the search is completed, you will instantly receive multiple 100% matches which have all been fully verified and KYC checked. Step 4. When the candidate chooses to opt in, you can view their skill set and experience. Only when you are satisfied, use your credit to unlock the candidate's full profile. Once unlocked, the profile remains unlocked for all future searches. What makes this system truly revolutionary is that when you search, the search will continue in all the different databases until a 100% match is found. Each database involved and the candidate share in the revenue, and that's how this circular revenue model and shared database benefit all parties involved.
So it's nice that you had that experience of a small bank, a small group,
Yes.
but with I've got this picture of, it's unfair of me to Eric and others, these grizzled old veterans who are kind of like they've seen it all, you know. It's they probably weren't like that at all, but that's in my head. But it's great because you get that exposure.
Absolutely.
Wonderful exposure.
It was amazing.
And it's lit the fire on you.
Yes.
From university.
Yes.
Can I also say as well, that one of the questions I would typically ask you towards the end, we're actually already answering, which is about around those who've had an input in your life and have said, and moments where you've have changed and shaped you, and clearly the friend with I'm going to courier you the documents.
Absolutely.
And then Eric calling you on the day, and the person at possibly Dimension Data, we're not sure, at the IT firm, saying no, go for it. You know, without that person, and then obviously the judge as well, or the professor. Yeah, you've had some.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, but you put yourself in those positions as well, and
you have to be active. I think you know the one thing for me, and credit to my parents as well, and especially my dad, always says you don't waste an opportunity. If you see something, you go for it, and you have to create the door. If the door isn't there, you literally have to chisel it out and make it happen. And
love it.
It's really,
and that's how you've lived your life.
That's how I've lived my life,
and will continue to do so as well.
Absolutely.
So 2 years at Teba Bank. Now, obviously, in the banking world, during that time, South Africa got away relatively lightly from the global financial crisis because there was still very old school and traditional. And I know, speaking to people who were at ABSA and places like that time, South Africa did okay. You know, less risk, a bit more risk averse maybe than our friends in New York, who were busy. Let's just say they were busy. And then an opportunity comes up at Deloitte, fantastic firm, global firm in forensics.
So what happened with Deloitte is I had always wanted to work for Deloitte.
Why Deloitte?
So just
good firm,
excellent firm. There was just something about Deloitte. I think looking at the accounting field, and a lot of my fellow students at high school looking at the accounting field looked at the Deloittes, the EYs, and Deloitte always stood out. And I loved Deloitte, but never thought I could work there because I wasn't going into accounting.
Yeah.
And then when I then discovered forensics and carried on looking. So the one thing I also do is if I'm in a position, I'm always looking to see what else is happening in that position. I think it's always important. Keep up with your
not just
area,
your job, but your area.
Your area. Yeah. So, would look at Deloitte and just absolutely love the firm. And just, I would even drive there at times, just drive to Deloitte and just look at the buildings. They were still at Woodlands at the time and just really wanted to work for Deloitte. And just carried on. I would speak to friends, and how the opportunity actually came about was me actually speaking to a friend and saying, love Deloitte, and, I've been looking at their forensic side. And a friend of mine said, oh, I know someone who works at Deloitte. She had worked at Deloitte a few years earlier. I said, oh, I know someone who works there. He's not in forensics, but you know what? Just give me your CV and I'll send it through to him and let's see what happens. Sent my CV to her, and one day got a call from Deloitte. Had a discussion, went, did an interview, got the opportunity, went to Eric and I said, Eric, I got an opportunity with Deloitte. Eric said, you know what, Tendai? Great opportunity. I will try and counter offer, which he did. But I then said, no, I'm going to go for it. And he said, you absolutely go for it. Sent me off with a wonderful farewell lunch. And, he said to me, I knew that, you would stay for about 2 years. I knew that I wasn't going to have you for longer than that because you were going to move on to something bigger. And, that meant a lot to me, just from someone who had trained me, because he took me without experience.
Yeah.
Excellent guy. Took me
Your
without
best
experience.
interest.
Yes, absolutely. And went on to Deloitte and bigger things. Wonderful things. And it was an exciting time because the World Cup was happening. So there was a lot of construction happening. And it was huge for forensics because monies were going where they were not supposed to, and a lot of things had to be investigated. So the time I spent at Deloitte was really, again, a shaping experience for me because it took me out of just that banking space, and that closed space. So as you said, Teba Bank was a small place, wonderful training ground, to suddenly now becoming client-facing and really working on big instructions, million rand projects, investigating those. And the expectations were high, from the managers that I worked with. Global group, getting big government and private sector instructions. And
and Deloitte, again, I've never worked there, but I know from just observing them in the business world that they're quite innovative.
Yes,
they're always looking at the next thing. I think they even branched into digital marketing recently in recent years and everything. They're always quite innovative. Yes. So that would have been I'm sure you would have felt that as well.
Absolutely.
That sort of innovation.
Fast pace, and just the multiple instructions and working with different teams as well. Just not being isolated to forensics. So it was, your consulting space. They would come in. There was the tech space as well. So just getting a wider influence.
It's so nice that you had that opportunity, something that was a dream to work for, and you got that opportunity. Yes. It's great. I mean, obviously not everybody has that chance, but it's great that you had that chance.
Yes.
Now, fast forward a couple of years, and then your next step is quite a few years working for yourself.
Yes.
What was the reason to start doing that?
So absolutely loved working for Deloitte. And the consulting experience gave me the courage to step out on my own. And a big part of it was that I decided to start a family. My husband and I decided to start a family. And we wanted to raise our family in a particular way, with one parent being available. So, I'm a professional. And my husband knows me. He understands that work is a big part of who I am. I love my career. I love studying, advancing myself. I had done my master's during the time that I was at Teba Bank, also at Deloitte, done my master's in accounting sciences, fraud risk management.
Amazing.
And decided to work on my own so that I would have the time and space to fulfill my career aspirations, but also have time to be with my son, who then came a few months later after I left Deloitte, and had a wonderful time, just working on my own, but also being an available parent.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those battles, not battles, that's the wrong word. It's one of those conversations that we parents have often.
Yeah.
I had the same conversation with my wife fairly recently.
Yeah.
We're both working parents, but we moved to South Africa away from Hong Kong because I was never there.
Yeah.
And we both want, it's fairly similar
Yes.
to yourself. work is a big part of who we are.
Yes.
And we love it. And we love achieving, and we love trying new things and learning new things. But at the same time, we both wanted to be available parents.
Yes.
And finding that balance is not always easy.
It's not easy. It's not easy, Rob. And, I think we sell a myth if we tell people that there's balance.
When we're working at 1 o'clock in the morning,
that's
changing diapers.
Changing diapers. It's tough. It is tough. And I think the message for me, especially for women, when I share with women, but also, guys who are trying to see how they make this work for their families, it is tough, and you make it work the best you can.
Well, that's a great...
really is it.
We won't end on that note because I've got other things I've got to ask you. But that is a really, really important message.
Yes. There are times where I have to say to I now have a daughter who's 5 years old. There are times when I have to say... one of each. So my son's 10, my daughter's 5. There are times when I have to say to my daughter, Mommy has to work now. So I need you to go and sit with your brother. Or I need you to go and watch TV so that I can focus. Yeah. And it is okay. It actually is okay. There are times where I have to leave the house very early and come back late. I don't always get to put my children to bed. I try, what my husband and I try to do is, I do the mornings, he then does the evenings. So I'm then free to work later into the day, into the early evening. But it doesn't always work. It doesn't work.
If you're both working for corporates, or if you're both working for yourself, or one is working, the balance, it's almost like a daily change.
It is.
It depends on what's coming through.
Yes.
There is no perfect answer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's going to be tough. There are times when you will feel bad. There are times where I feel like, I'm a terrible mom. And then my best friend says to me, no, you're great. You had a party for your daughter. She was happy. And then I remember, I'm like, no, I am a great mom. I have to draw on those things.
No, we all do that. My wife does that the same as well.
Yeah.
She often second guess herself. I don't think I'm doing enough. And then I go, but do you remember that bouncy castle and that that you did last week?
Yeah.
And you gave up the whole week to organise this amazing and then, yes, I do remember. Yeah, no, you are a fantastic mother.
Absolutely. And I think we need to be honest as parents and professionals that it is tough and it's okay. As you said, it's a daily managing process. Some days are better than others. Some seasons or some weeks are very bad. And then you get time to breathe. You take time to go on holiday. And then, you just put the past behind you and move on. And the kids are okay.
They are there.
They're okay.
Love you.
They love you.
Now, the next couple of moves that you made, I'm not going to go too much into because one is your current employer and I've known you throughout that.
Yes.
And I think it would be unfair if I start quizzing you about that. But obviously our first, and I won't go too much into your previous employer as well, because again, it's not that long ago and I don't want to be mean to you. But obviously I came to you when we were instructed to look for someone who had the capabilities of building something from scratch, effectively. Yes. And when I first started talking to you and I looked at your consulting work and I thought that's a person who could do it. And obviously, we luckily for them, we married the two together and that was a couple of years. And then you and I would start to talk about what you're seeing, what you want to see going forward. And one of the things I always ask, and I asked you, was like, what do we want the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years to look like? And let's aim for it. And I think that resonated with you. It's certainly, absolutely, because you and I got on very well in our sessions. And clearly now I know the previous Tendai, that you are that kind of person, aren't you? That will go,
absolutely.
Okay, I want to go for that. What do I have to do to get there?
Yeah, and I think just meeting and us chatting and me seeing your business really resonated, and how you care about the people who you speak to in recruiting. Really care about the people, because I know where you've walked with me in terms of that process, wasn't just about, let me place you somewhere or let's make something happen. You really got to know me, and that really resonated. So as I was with the previous place...
I'm glad we found each other.
Yeah, I really am. With the previous place and, really thinking, and again, I've said this, when I'm in a place, I'm always thinking about how am I advancing myself? And, we'll speak about what I'm thinking about now, just in terms of my specialization and where that is. But, thinking about, where I was, as you said, built this thing up, managed to get it going, and then thought, I've done this. Would I be doing this same position, same thing 10 years from now? Absolutely not. And that was where I was at that time. It was a smaller place. Yeah. I had a vision of where I wanted to be, but didn't quite know how to get there. And I think that's how our discussions came, those questions you asked to really draw out, what my thought process was. And then really got a clear understanding of who I was, where I wanted to then take this specialization that I have and how to put it out there. So
I think as well, something that is really important for the listeners to sort of get a handle on is, firstly, you do change over time, and your desires and your wants out of your career and where you want to head in your life as your kids get older, as you get older, your challenges change. And I think that's something that I really admired in you, is that you were like, I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but I know that I want to go in that direction. Yes. And you're right, and thank you for the kind words. I do genuinely care about everybody we work with, and I won't. We're not. Sorry to use the term, but we're not a bums on seats kind of firm that just goes, just fling this out, go there. If the move isn't right, I mean, I've lost count of the times that I've said to people on the phone, you should stay where you are. That's the best place for you. And of course, when someone in recruitment says that to you, you go, huh? But I want to move. So you go, nah, this is why. The market looks like this. The market looks like that. The one thing that firms don't often do, and we're all guilty of it sometimes when we've got people working for us that we like and we want to stick around, is they don't think about the person. Now, I'm not saying that your previous firm were like that at all in any way, shape or form, but sometimes you have to just admit that the person might not be here forever, especially in a role where, for instance, you're building something. Because that's the fun bit. That is the fun bit. And I think from what firms really need to think about is, if you do want people to stay, because I think sometimes people do want to stay, you have to think about the people. You have to think about, are we creating a conducive environment for people to stay? And being in this profession, speaking to people who've been in it for longer or been in practice for longer, people who are coming in, I think as a legal profession, we really need to ask that hard question. I love it. I love it what you're saying there, and I'm going to give you a little story, and it doesn't involve any of your ex-employees, employers. Sorry, so it's fine. It was a firm in Cape Town I was working with, doing some strategy work with the other day, and it's on that point. And I said to the managing partner, who I'm going to change the names, obviously. Who's your best person, your best lawyer? And he said, David. First name that came into my head, and he said. And I said, okay, so tell me about David. And he said, brilliant guy, 2 years post-qualified, will be a director probably in the next couple of years. He's a young gun, really bright, singing his praises. And I said, okay, so you think he's going to go on to be a director very quickly, or a junior partner, whatever, salaried partner? Yes, we're definitely. Okay, and I just went, have you asked David? And the total silence. I said, all I'm going to tell you, Mr. Managing Partner, is that David is 28 years old. He's Gen Y, Gen Z. 5 minutes to him might be. I'm being sarcastic. I'm being very sarcastic and facetious, but might seem a long time. Ask him what's his challenge, because the traditional route that law firms would take to become a partner and then an exco might not be on his radar. Absolutely. So it kind of fits in with what you were saying about.
And, I think because of my background, I have a lot of people coming to me and speaking to me very openly. They might not be as open as they are with people who've gone the traditional route, but because I've come from the outside, if I can call it that, and then come into practice, a lot of people say, Tendai, what's out there? Because
what's it like?
What's it like out there? Because I know this isn't good for me. I'm not happy where I am, but I don't know anything else. And it's a common thread across law firms where, people are in this, yes, they want to work, they're lawyers, but it's taking an emotional toll, it's taking a mental toll. And I really believe that law firms, with us in law firms, the directors in law firms, have to think about the people. We have to think about the people. We need to think about the career. Yeah. What are we saying? People do leave. And sometimes it's not leaving because, they wanted more money, so they're just running off to another firm. It's actually leaving because they're deeper issues that are violating them at their value level.
Exactly right. And on that as well, one of the things I do with my strategy work is I talk to a lot of partners at law firms, and I say about changing their lens when it comes to the way that they recruit and the way that they keep people.
Yes.
One of the things is you've got to talk to people more.
Absolutely.
And you've got to understand that what they wanted 2 years ago is not necessarily what they need now. They might have had a family, or they might have changed or divorce or something. Something might be pressurizing. But I always turn it back to a sports analogy as well. Quite often with my clients, I will often ask them, do you like football? Because I'm going to use soccer. And then I go, whenever Liverpool Football Club or Manchester United or Manchester City or whoever it is sign a striker, they don't go, okay, we're going to sign him on this contract, and then one day he's going to be the manager, and then he's going to be chairman.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. They sign him in smaller tranches. Yes. And what I'm trying to do is trying to say, think about your people and let them think about this in 2-year tranches.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about retention and keeping people and think it's a failure if they leave after 5 years. Just go in 2-year tranches and then go, is this still okay for you?
Is it working?
Is it working?
Is it actually working?
Because if it's not, we need to either change it or you need to change it.
Yes.
We can talk about this forever, but and that's what I'm trying to get to, because it would be better for the person and it would be better for the firm.
And I think firms end up losing really good people.
They do.
For reasons that they shouldn't, And I think sad. I also say this, I spoke about the people who influenced my career, and the fact that at a young age, early in my career, I was listened to. I was able to have conversations about my career and say, this is what I'm thinking. Yeah, I do that now. And I think if a lot more people, partner level, director level, can actually do that, I think we would see a change in the law, in the law fraternity, and we need it. I think we need it.
I'm glad you brought that up, and obviously we won't go into too much detail today, but it's something that I'm also very conscious of, and I'm very encouraging of, is that law firms need to. They need to continue to embrace technology, and they need to continue to embrace and try to be innovative with the way they're thinking. That's one of the things that the audit guys have got right. I mean, the consulting guys, is that they are gradually, slowly but surely changing and changing the work environment.
Yes.
And stop hanging on to the billable hours.
We need to let them go.
Let them go. It doesn't mean you're going to make less money.
No, it doesn't.
You just charge accordingly and look at the outcomes and look at the quality instead of the danger I've seen over the last decade and a half, right? And I'm sure some lawyers will disagree with me and some won't, but you may have seen it, is that there's been more and more pressure being put on younger lawyers to get out there and get clients.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And fetch clients. And you're talking about highly technical, highly intelligent people who've been turned into salespeople.
Yes.
And that isn't
it's
what they
completely
went
unfair.
Into it for.
No, they didn't go into it for that. And they don't have the skill. I think...
And they don't have the want.
They don't have the want. They don't have the desire.
People underestimate the difficulty of sales.
Yeah.
It's a hard technical job.
Absolutely.
And it's chalk and cheese to come to from a technical lawyer. But you're right. Yeah.
So true. A lot of pressure. And you find that a lot of people end up leaving practice because of that, because they can't take that financial pressure, if I can call it, going to fetch. They just don't know how to do it. They're not getting the skills to do it. They're expected to do it. They don't know how to do it.
And something's gonna break.
Yeah.
You can obviously there's some incredibly good law firms out there and they run really well. So this is not for everybody. But also, if you are putting more and more pressure on your younger lawyers to get out there and fetch, then they're not necessarily developing their technical skills. And at some point down the line, that's going to have an effect, because the client over there is going to turn around and go, what am I paying for? Yeah. Especially with the advent of AI and technology, which is going to be able to do a lot of. Anyway, again, we could talk about this for ages, but we do need. But I think that's exciting. I'm sure you feel the same.
I absolutely do.
Exciting changes.
Exciting changes, and just to go back, that technical ability, very important for any person. Master your craft. Master your craft. And then you can soar from there. So I had to put in my hours. I started from scratch. As I said, worked in banking, worked at Deloitte as a senior consultant, but that was technical work. I had to master that. And
so that's a good lesson for people listening. Master your craft. Master your craft,
and then you can move on to becoming your managerial side, your leadership side, building your team. I've only been able to build a team because I know how to work technically, and I know how to teach technically, and I know how to then pull out of the people I work with, what they need to produce technically. So very important. And then you can build on the other skills, which is now, as you're saying, the sales part of it. But I think those technical skills must be solid. We must allow our juniors to become technically solid and then empower them to go out there and do the sales job. But we have to empower them.
I fully agree with you. I actually think there's going to be a bit of a change. I was talking about it the other day. There's going to be a change in the way that law firms are structured in the future. I know this. The research. This isn't just Rob reckons. This is based on fact and research, and I'm happy to share it with people. At the moment, you kind of have a sort of almost like a triangle. You have the partners at the top, small band, and then it goes down, and the work is fed down.
Yes.
And now there's of outside market pressures, should we say?
Yes.
There's more pressure going down that triangle for people to get money in.
Yes.
I think it's going to go and change. I think what you're going to see is, and it doesn't bode well for younger lawyers. I'm sorry about this, and I'm going to put the link to an article I read the other day that sort of backed up my theory. What I think you'll see going forward is I think you'll see a very strong management team, and the law firm will retain the extortionate professional indemnity insurance to make sure that they're covered, and that's good, and the brand will stay the same. And then you'll find a row of rainmakers, people who are the client holders.
Yes,
and
who
they
are
will,
good at that.
And are good at that.
Yes.
And they will develop, and they will be paid very well.
Yes.
And they won't go anywhere. They'll be with you forever.
They'll stay.
And the work will come in.
Yes.
And then you'll select the people,
the
professionals who are maybe outside the firm that are forensics experts or this. And you'll put together a team for that project, deliver that project, and go on.
Yeah.
All research is indicating that's what will happen in the future. I don't know what that means for young lawyers coming through. We'll have to work that out. But master your craft is a key.
Master your craft.
If you want to be part of that.
Yes.
I mean, the research we did the other day, LexisNexis and GRM's research together showed that by 2035, over 70% of attorneys globally will be working for themselves in the gig economy, much as you did before you joined your previous firm.
Yes.
That's a lot of lawyers.
It's a lot of lawyers, and the profession will have to change to actually understand how to work with that.
They'll have to master their craft.
Yes.
You might not even be aware of that person, but you might have a piece of work, and then they come to you and say, Tendai, this is what I know, this is what I know. You go, right, you can come in on this project.
Yes.
And that will mean that they'll be an expert in their field, and they'll be able to charge you, which obviously you'll then charge the client, but you charge you a higher rate.
Yeah.
This is another thing that some lawyers were talking to me about the other day. Is that, if we don't charge by the hour, how do we keep how do we make our money? I was like, charge for your expertise.
You do charge for your expertise. So, because of my background, the experience I've had, I'm able to do project-based work.
Yeah.
So I can charge a client.
What you're doing now is the future of law.
So I charge with a lot of the work that I do, that I've done when I worked on my own and now where I am, is actually work out the project fee and tell the client upfront what it's going to cost, because I understand what the work is. But again, it's mastering it and knowing what it is.
And this is what the balance that some firms are struggling with as they move into this new reality. I could talk to you about this for hours because it is. I mean, I hate to use the term revolution, but we are going through a bit of a revolution with the advent of AI and AGI.
Absolutely.
And what that means for the revenues that are generated and the way that work is delivered. Ultimately, though, it means that things will get better.
Things will get better. And I think what it means for a lawyer is you have to think beyond, I'm a lawyer, I do my billable hours, I deliver whatever area you're in. You have to think about tech. You have to understand what's happening with AI. You need to keep abreast, because when, as you're saying, a client approaches you, they will have expectations of you, of your understanding of how things are changing. And you cannot be stuck in the traditional way of doing things.
Exactly. And also, if you're pushing your juniors out to go and fetch more work, they're not mastering their craft.
Yeah.
And then when the client turns around and says, we need a technically sound lawyer to do this piece of work, you don't have anyone.
You don't have,
because they were too busy chasing clients up. Now it is happening, and it needs to. And I actually said to a couple of partners I spoke to the other day, younger partners in their sort of early 30s. I said, actually, one of them said, we had a similar conversation, and I said, she said to me, what do you see as one of the futures for lawyers like me? Then I said, it's good. I think the technical lawyers will make a comeback.
Yes.
Because there will be a differentiator between the I don't want to say the salesperson, the rainmakers and the technical people, and you'll work in tandem.
Absolutely.
A lot of firms, not just in South Africa, this is globally, have sort of married the two and have started judging really sound technical lawyers on their ability to bring more money in.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not what I do this for. Yeah. It's changing, and it will change. And I think the industry will be better for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So important thing is, as a lawyer, don't stand still. Push yourself. If you're academically inclined, study. If you like doing short courses, do the short courses. If you like attending some sort of industry events and seeing what's out there, do it. But just don't get stuck in the bubble of, I'm a lawyer, I'm traditional, this is my area, this is what I do. You have to think broadly. You have to think beyond that.
That's a brilliant question, brilliant point you make, because it was actually sort of back on the back of the question I was going to ask you, which, obviously it's coming to the end of the afternoon now, and I don't want to keep you forever. You've got kids at home, and mine are down in Cape Town at the moment. So, but I was going to ask you, what do you know now that you wish you knew at the start of your career, if there is one thing? But you've kind of touched on a few lessons in there. Is there anything that you can think of?
So I think it's probably to trust the process. That there are a lot of different avenues, and for me, every avenue is right, even if it's not long term. So I think, being young and not being sure of myself, I would spend a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to do, which was great. And as I said, pursued, different things, and it's worked out. I think I could have been a lot more relaxed and trusted the process. I think I would be where I am today.
I really like that. That's a really, really good lesson for anybody listening. That's a really good point to make. And the bit there you just said about the trust the process, but whatever avenue you take, that avenue is right. Yeah. Yeah. As long as you're doing, I want to do that.
Yes.
And also nothing, in addition to that, certainly when we're tying back into what we were talking about careers, nothing's forever. Nothing has to be, it doesn't have to be as callous as that's my stepping stone to this and this and this.
Absolutely.
It's just, for me, it's a bad example, but I always, relate it back to relationships.
Yeah.
it's highly unlikely that you're going to be married forever to your first boyfriend.
Absolutely.
Or girlfriend. You have your relationship, and then it ends, and then you go on to another one. But in that moment, that's right.
It was the right thing at that time.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And again, I know it's a bad comparison, but it is. Trust the process. Trust that you're. Be active.
Be active. I think that's the important thing. When you're on a path, as I said, continue to see what's around you. Continue to engage with different people. See what's out there career-wise. What are people studying? And then you can change. You can be on that one path and then see that there's an avenue to something else. Take the off-ramp and take a different route. And it is okay. It really is okay.
I think I'm going to end on that note, because that's a real perfect note to end on. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for coming in. I'm loving sitting here with you, seeing you again, and sharing your journey with our listeners as well. So thanks so much, Tendai.
Thank you for having me, Rob. And it's great to share.
Brilliant.
It really is.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.